So I'm gonna make this a quick little segment. Now, a lot of people have already covered this, so I'm not gonna do much editing. I was actually gonna be doing a video about the positives of like why Samsonov succeeded last season. Kind of in the middle of that, trying to find good film, good and bad. Been sick, battling kind of a cold, sore throat still, so I'm not feeling great. I think a lot of the stress, weather change, stress with my mother's health situation. I just think it all came to me, and my body's like, nope, we're shutting down, and you're sleeping like 12, 13 hours a day. Still watched hockey, still was able to make videos, but I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes I was like, woof, I just want to go to sleep. Let's talk about Samsonov, though. He's more important. Who gives a shit about me? He ends up getting waived. Nobody claims him. Completely clears. Best thing to happen to him. The Leafs just I feel bad for him. I do because it's not a lack of athletic ability. It's not a lack of his talent, in my opinion. It's just mental. Doesn't look confident. He does not look confident in any way, shape, or form, and that can be a goalie killer. We've seen it. Jack Campbell, like unsure of himself. I mean, he's a shell of what he was. Do I think he's done? Do I think Samsonov is done at the NHL level? No. He dealt with these confidence issues with the Capitals, and he'd go on some good stretches, like he'd be like, "Woof, this guy could be the number one," and then he'd go on some bad stretches, like, "Woof, maybe he's better off in a backup role." That it's just it because I was talking to my buddy Danny about it because he's a lifelong Capitals fan. He's like, "Yeah, man, like this was the maddening thing with Samsonov, like." Good stretches, bad stretches, good stretches. It would drive you crazy because you think you have somebody there, and then it's just when he goes on those bad stretches, like, well, maybe not. And last year was the perfect storm. Played on a very good team. They played well around him, and hell of a year, contract year. Ends up getting, I think was signed a 1 year deal this year. I think he's an RFA again, if I remember correctly. I'm not doing much editing in this video because I'm just gonna go falling asleep after this one again. But yeah, I mean, guy played great last season. Goes into uh, arbitration, trying to argue like, oh, I'm this worth, and maybe this is a theory been thrown around. Maybe because Tree Living had to like negotiate and say, well, you're not that great. This is why we think you're less than what you actually think you're worth. Maybe that maybe that shattered his confidence. I don't know. I think it's more to do with the play on the ice. Maybe that had something to do with it. But the last game I covered, the last game he played with the Blue Jackets, right? There was a shot from the blue line. I think he was just trying to get something on net, probably go for a line change if I remember correctly. I might be a little off on that, but it was a shot far out. He was not even set, and since he wasn't ready, puck goes in the net, and it looks awful. And that's what I've noticed. He's not mentally there. I think he's just shot. I think he's shot in the head right now. Like he's shell shocked. He's like, you know what, man? He's burnt out. He's probably like, man, like I just can't make a save right now. And then when you start thinking like that, and you start thinking instead of just reacting, I think you see what you see with Samsonov. Where he'll maybe make some nice saves, but he'll let him some weak ones. Do I think he's done at the NHL level? No. I think he needs to build his confidence back up. I think he needs to play AHL, play some good hockey, look good, get confident. He still has all the attributes you'd want in an NHL level goaltender, but he needs to be built back up. And this is something I'm going to mention real quick. I saw some people complain when I put like, oh well, in the video I mentioned like, oh well, the Maple Leafs in some moments like they just defensively weren't great. And I saw some arguments saying, "Oh, he's a Leafs hater because he brings up like, oh, this he brings up like Samsonov had, I think it was like 4 saves, no, sorry, 4 goals against and 12 shots or something like that, some stat line at one point." He's like, "Oh, he brings that up, like that. This is the shots. This is horrendous. He needs to make saves." And you're just a Leafs hater because you're just talking down on him if you're not saying it's all Samsonov's fault. I'm like, first off, I don't do the whole hating on a team to hate on a team. I think that shit, in my perspective, kind of corny. I'm gonna watch good hockey, right? I want my team to fucking win, obviously. But I think some of that's just kind of corny. I like the rivalry aspect. I like when the players get into it. But I'm not just going to sit and make videos just shitting on a team just because, like, oh, my team's this, and we've been facing each other for years. Like, that's no, I'm not gonna do that. I'll talk about the rivalry, about the actual players playing when they get like really into it, start beating the crap out of each other. That's fun, but I'm not gonna, just talk down on another team because my team plays contested matches against them. I mean, that's hockey. Anyways, yeah, shots on goal to saves made, not great, but I mean, when I clearly pointed out 3 Maple Leafs guys behind the goal line in their own end, underneath the goal line, like, oh, guy wide open in front of the net, I think it was Johnson. What'd you expect? Then there was a redirect goal where nobody decided to get the guy, take a body, man on man. He's just in front of the net, Samsonov able to deflect, and it goes in. It's like, yeah, I mean, you can say the number and the quantity of shots aren't that high, but if they're fucking grade A chances, right? What do you expect to happen? These guys are NHL level players. Third, fourth liners are going to snipe that shit. This league is so talented these days. So, and I'm not going to get into it because it's going to start a whole flame war, but that's what the Maple Leafs like. They'll have those good stretches of like 55 minutes where they'll play really good, but then they'll have like that 5 where it's like, ay, like, what are you doing? And it's not that like the other team's just really cooking and momentum's built, but it's just mind-boggling, like horrific defensive letdowns. And I understand you're not going to play perfect hockey throughout the game. I mean, fucking trust me, I've watched some of these Bruins games, been far from fucking perfect. But it's just inexcusable defensive lapses. That, yeah, easy to blame the goaltender, but if you watch the play, it's like, well, I mean, fuck, the guy's wide open in front. Like, nobody took him, nobody took their assignment. I mean, how much are we going to blame him? Anyways. Samsonov's confidence is shattered. Right? Easy to say. Shattered, nowhere near what it should be. Do not believe that Joseph Walls can't get shattered either. And I say that because I want Wall to be awesome. I want him to be a great starter for the Leafs for many years. He's a rookie goaltender. We got a cup of coffee last year, I thought did pretty well, all things considered, when he got dropped into that playoff game due to Samsonov being injured. He was playing above average hockey with the Leafs. Like, when I was watching him, he was bailing the Leafs out of from some pretty bad defensive miscues. Like, some pretty fucking bad play at times. He was playing great. He's coming back from injury. Might take him some time. He's a young goaltender. And I'm going to say this very clearly. Goaltender is one of those positions where it takes some time. It takes games. It takes some years even to build confidence. And I'll say this right. Jeremy Swayman invested in a conversation for some people because he's having a great year. I mean, heck, even last year, right, when Omar had a great year, people were like, oh, Swayman doesn't look like that good. He looks unsure of himself. He's not developing at the pace we thought, which I thought was a little silly because he's still really freaking young. It's like, oh, well, maybe, maybe he's not a future number 1. Maybe he's just a very good backup. And then he comes to this season, he's just, because he's building, it's like building blocks, building the foundation. Like, you can tell, like, year after year, he's like, and this year he just looks so confident with how he plays. That's the one thing I got to give the Bruins. They know how to develop goaltenders. The one thing I worry about with Wall, you don't want to shell shock the kid so much or ride him so much that you destroy him. The Leafs are not, in my opinion, a Stanley Cup favorite. I think they're they're a solid playoff team. I think there's only like a handful of teams I look at, like, Vegas, obviously, Colorado Avalanche. Yeah, I could say Florida. I think Florida still has the makeup for it. The New York Rangers have played great this year. They got to prove it to me in the playoffs, but they do have the goaltending. There's not too many teams I'm like, oh, that's a Stanley Cup favorite. And then there's a lot of like teams beneath that one, like the tier below, which I think the Bruins are in. Like, they're a tier below that. I think the Bruins have holes on their roster. I think they played well this season, but they have to prove to me in other areas of the game. But that's a whole different video. there's there's holes in the Maple Leafs roster, and it's not just the goaltending. I mean, the defense, it's okay, nothing to write home about, but it's there's a genuine concern. Are they good enough on the back end to win a cup? I think offensively they are. I mean, they have a fucking great top six. Great top six. But back end I have questions about, and you have a rookie goaltender. Martin Jones, he's giving you adequate goaltending. It's not the Martin Jones when he was with the Sharks, who was in the All-Star. It's not that guy. He's the guy that was in Seattle last year that has sub 900. He's an adequate goaltender. I mean, I think he's a below. Yeah, I'll be fair. Maybe he's an okay backup. I don't like talking negative about players really. But who is it? Hildeby from the Marlies, the kid that actually has some good stats when I look at the AHL.com. Bringing him up. I mean, maybe him and Wall, but then you're depending on rookie goaltenders to carry you, and it takes time for these goalies to build up that confidence, build up that foundation, so they can have experiences to build off of, so they can kind of come back from things. That's the one thing for me. If I'm a Leafs fan, like I'm watching the Samsonov thing, and while he has played not great, you also want to make sure you don't shatter Wall or Hildeby or any of these goaltenders' confidence. You got to kind of try to avoid that. So hopefully they have a full commitment to a 200-foot game for a majority of their games, not just when they decide to. That's going to give me some hate comments saying that. Whatever. I'm kind of tired. I'm not going to edit that out. Anyways, as for Samsonov, I'll give my final thoughts on it. Quite frankly, is he done at the NHL level? No, he's not. He's too talented. Too much athleticism. I think all the other attributes are there for him to be a very successful NHL goaltender. He's just mentally shot right now, and that's completely fine. That's completely fine. You can recover from that, but I think overall it'd be good for him to have a complete change of scenery. We've seen that with some goaltenders, right? Devils gave up on Blackwood. He goes over San Jose, and while the stats aren't nothing to write home about this season because the team he's playing on, he's played some pretty damn good hockey. So, maybe just altogether both parties decide to move on. But there's also a chance here. I don't want to say that, close the door completely. He goes down with the Marlies. He takes a mental break. He gets good, starts playing good. They call him back up, and he gets back to playing what he did last season. That's a possibility, too. You can't write that off. I know that sounds far-fetched, but maybe getting some games at a little less intense of a spotlight, getting right. Maybe that is exactly what he needs to get back to playing at a pretty damn good level. But I'd like to know your thoughts down below in the comment section. What you think of this? Do you think Samsonov will be back to the NHL this season? You think he'll be back on the Leafs roster? Let me know your thoughts. I'm Captain Paul. I'll see you in the next one. I'm going to sleep. I'm so tired.